to my home. I should know what to do next, and a lot of us don't. Are there, easy ways to just go to find that? I mean, is it HUD? Is the Housing and Urban Development? Is that the name of that agency?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the Housing and Urban Development, and of course that's a government agency. But HUD was created to protect homeowners, to protect people that own property. But I didn't know that at the time. And so when I learned about that, I started doing more research. I found the agencies in my community and in other communities, and I became this advocate for, almost an advocate for HUD. Like, yes, everybody needs to understand what this information is about, because to your point, we should all know what the next step would be, but there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to home ownership, from sustainability, even from the acquisition portion of home ownership.
There are things that people happen on other my friends' properties. I'll hear about like branches being in their pipelines or something happening to their electrical, even things like that. Like, I would have no idea how to manage any of those things, the upkeep of a property, which can really have an impact on your ability to maintain the home and keep it.
Right. So one of the things that we do, or as an agency, when we teach home ownership, we have all of the industry partners come in. We actually do an 8-hour class one Saturday every month. And we have all the partners come in. The partners include the inspector, the insurance agent, the attorney that you were working with, and of course a lender. And they actually talk about all these different little nuances that happen when you're buying your home and once you own your home, that you should be aware of, even down to what side of the sidewalk are the homeowner responsible for the plumbing. One side, the city is responsible, the other side, the homeowner is responsible. So we share all that information in those classes that we teach.
That's outstanding. And so that, you said that happens once a month on a Saturday?
Yes, we do an 8-hour class once a month on a Saturday. That's in person. Then we also do 3 2-hour classes that are virtual over a 3-month period. So it's 2 hours every Tuesday evening, one Tuesday a month for 3 months. Sort of break it down for people that's not able to sit for one 8-hour session.
I don't know what you mean. As long as there's like a dance session in the middle of all that, I think I could do that.
I know, right?
Something to keep folks' energy going. And how do people find out about those events every month and all the other classes? Do they go to oprhc.org?
Yes, oprhc.org. Under programs, you'll see home ownership. You click on that, and they'll give you information about our home ownership and information about our workshop.
That's excellent. I will drop the link to your organization. So we live stream on Facebook. Your photo is on our live stream right now. Someday we'll have to have you in studio, but I'll make sure that folks have the information from that too. Let me put that up there, right there. I've just put the link. See, now folks have to go to the Facebook stream, but you also have this great event coming up tomorrow. Tell us about going to see this production at the Nederlander Theater, Paradise, which I did not know about this story. Paradise Square.
Right. So, we have some tickets left, so if you want to join us, feel free to do so. So the wonderful thing about Oak Park Regional Housing Center is that it was actually founded in the late 1950s, and it was established in 1972 with the idea to eliminate white flight as well as to eliminate redlining, so that Oak Park, and are you familiar with the Oak Park community?
I'm a little bit. There's a lot of wonderful homes. You guys have a great downtown area, and it's a very eclectic area as well, isn't it?
Well, what makes Oak Park is so great is because it's very well integrated, and that's due to the work of Oak Park Regional Housing Center, where we created this this idea of people staying in their homes and welcoming other people of color into the community, and people became the first integrated in the community. And so the idea of this play tomorrow night, I'm sorry, it's not a play, but a musical, Paradise Square, really hones in on the fact that integrated communities is not something that just started 50 years ago with the Oak Park Regional Housing Center, but it's something that started in 1863 when you had Irish immigrants who literally moved into upstate New York and lived with free blacks. And the story talks about how they were able to get along, how they were able to build businesses and how they just thrived as a community, of course, until the Civil War started, and then that became a whole other story.
Oh, no.
But the musical around the integration, the culture, the businesses is so idealistic to the work that's happening in Oak Park. And so that's why we're trying to really promote it as a community, to come out, to see it, to thrive it, to own it, because that's who Oak Park is.
That's wonderful. So for folks who want to purchase tickets, that's oprhc.org/paradise-square. And I imagine there'll be a link here. Let me just go to the website so I can walk through it myself. It's always easier when I'm like, no, do this, then that. And it's a great idea for an event because, as you mentioned, Oak Park is a community that, and it's, if you're going, if you're going west on, let's say, North Avenue, right? North Avenue goes through Oak Park, doesn't it? I'm so bad sometimes.
Yes. So all of the main arteries, North Avenue goes through Oak Park, Chicago Avenue goes through Oak Park, Lake Street goes through Oak Park, Madison Street goes through Oak Park. All of the main arteries, even Roosevelt Road goes through Oak Park. All of the main arteries ride through Oak Park.
Yeah, and so when it is this sort of shift from the city to the way in which I think Oak Park has dedicated itself, as you mentioned, to being committed to the residents that are there and encouraging others to come in, and it is unique in and of itself to the surrounding areas. Do you live in Oak Park?
No, actually, well, I've lived in Oak Park at once upon a time in my life. But I was born and raised on the west side in Austin.
Okay.
Lived in Oak Park for a while, but now I'm back in Austin.
So you commute to Oak Park for work. Sometimes I know a lot of people have gone virtual. How much has the pandemic affected the work that you do and the conversations that you're having?
So because the work we do is so centered around housing, centered around community relations, we had to pivot how we did our work. So just like everybody else, we had to do a lot of work virtually. However, the populations that we serve, a lot of them still really relied on face-to-face support. So we didn't close our doors. We stayed open. Great. We saw a lot of people. We may have worked on skeleton crews, but we were still there helping people. And as you know, there's a lot of rental assistance that was available. We were one of the first agencies to help with rental assistance in the city of Chicago as well as suburban Cook County, because Oak Park Regional Housing Center, we service the entire region.
Okay. So it's not just Oak Park itself. And
no, not at all. We service Austin, and like I said, I live in Austin, but I literally live 6 minutes from the office. And we also have and we also have an office in Austin that I'm actually further away from, even though I live in Austin. So.
Oh boy, yep. And I have to imagine, there is a lot, just like you and I were both saying, initially when you don't really give much thought to owning a house, as far as like what the all the elements of it are. And I love that you help educate homeowners and people who want to buy a home. I want to continue our conversation. Do you mind holding on through a break and come back and continue talking about your event and your organization?
Sure, not at all.
Excellent. We are talking to Athena Williams, who is the executive director of Oak Park Regional Housing Center, and they are celebrating their 50th year of fighting for housing equity in integrated communities. And tomorrow night at the Nederlander Theater, they are they are presenting a performance. Would you say sponsoring, or it's kicking off your celebration for the 50th anniversary, right?
Yes, it's kicking off our celebration.
That's awesome. So tomorrow, November 18th, the doors open at 6:30. The performance is at 7:30. And if you're not familiar with where Nederlander is, it's at 24 West Randolph. And go to oprhc.org to purchase tickets. We'll continue our conversation when we come back on WCPT, Driving It Home with me, your host, Patti Vasquez.
You and your phone have been through a lot this past year. It's been your lifeline to the world. And now some big wireless company is telling you got to buy a new phone from them and sign their contract? They don't control you. With TracFone Wireless, you can keep the phone, number, and network you already have. Already got a 5G phone? Keep that too, because TracFone runs on America's best networks now with 5G nationwide. Plus, we've got unlimited talk and text smartphone plans starting at just $20. TracFone Wireless. Now you're in control. 5G nationwide access requires a 5G capable device. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
If you're like most people, you're probably more than a little concerned about the state of the world around us today. Strange times. The stock market all-time highs every day. U.S. debt never been higher right now. Dollars losing value. And let's not forget about inflation, the highest since 2008. Remember what happened in 2008. So, how do you protect your money, your retirement, your savings? Well, many people, just like you, are turning to Old Faithful to protect themselves during these difficult times. And Old Faithful is real gold and silver from the Oxford Gold Group, the kind you can actually hold in your hands and have in your IRA. No better time than the present to protect your future and the future of your family. Call the Oxford Gold Group right now, 833-928-GOLD. They will send you their free guide on investing in gold and silver and answer all of your questions. Protect your money before things get even worse out there. Call the Oxford Gold Group today at 833-928-GOLD. Oxford is here to help you protect your savings and retirement. That's 833-928-GOLD.
Make our way down this open road. All regrets are left back in the dust. I'm okay to take the wheel while you draw some near. A time to rediscover and to trust. We need this ride, waited for so long. I just want to make each second last.
Again, that's Chris Jones from his latest album. You can go to chrisjonesgrass.com for more information about the music he has there, and his radio on XM Sirius is and so it's chrisjonesgrass.com to learn more about Chris, his music, and the work that he does. Right now, we are learning about the work that our guest Athena Williams does. She's the executive director of Oak Park Regional Housing Center, and tomorrow they are taking 700 people, Athena? You take 700 people to this performance?
Yeah, well, we still have tickets available. So we are very close to that number. Yes,
that's wonderful.
Almost 700 of us in the theater enjoying this real display of community integration.
I had not heard of this. Again, the production is Paradise Square. It's a pre-Broadway musical, and it chronicles the story of free blacks and Irish immigrants learning to live together in a New York neighborhood. And you mentioned that one of the ways and one of the missions and the catalyst for the Oak Park Regional Housing Center was white flight and this desire to integrate communities. And we struggle with that so much. But what do you think are some of the things that were successful for Oak Park in the areas that you serve?
So, that's a very good question, and we talk about this all the time. It really, I'm sure you've heard the term that it takes a village. It really takes a village to work together to alter and change mindsets and to embrace the idea of where you want to go. So for Oak Park, it took our founder, Roberta Bobby Raymond, to bring together community members, property owners, the village governance, to really create a plan to move forward to make that happen.
And that's the thing is people have to be committed. They have to work on the plan because there's so many people that are resistant to change. That's the hardest part for me, don't you think?
That's the hardest part for everyone.
It's the hardest, and change doesn't come easy. And when you hit this wall of no, and it's galvanized, it's you've got to be in it for the long haul. And it sounds like that's the kind of work that you do. And you mentioned, I don't know if you've seen this, some of these pieces that have been out recently about the redlining. You mentioned redlining and the ways in which banks and local governments made it impossible for people of color and primarily black ownership of homes. We continue to struggle with that because there is a generational wealth that's passed down. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that affects communities?
Yeah, of course. So the redlining, and to that point, Patty, there's still a great deal of what they call dog whistles of redlining that's happening. Because the irony, I'll share another story. So when I told you that I live in Austin, and I literally live 6 minutes from the Oak Park office. However, that means I'm across the street from Oak Park, but there's still restaurants that will not deliver, even though I'm right across the street from Oak Park. So there's still a great deal of redlining. Yes, there's still a great deal of redlining that's happening in our communities, but that just goes to show where we have to put more work, more effort into addressing these issues, and we have to do it from a standpoint of policy, and we have to do it from a standpoint of bringing people together to understand that this is not how this is supposed to be, and this is what we need to do to change this.
We really do. And what are ways in which people can get involved, whether it's with your organization or in their own communities, to be a part of being, in the direction of positive change for everyone?
Right. So out of this musical that we're going to see tomorrow, is the kickoff for our 50th anniversary, but we're really looking at doing things. We're looking at going back to where we were, but in an effort to move forward. So this entire process with Paradise Square is about establishing our initiative of power of engagement. And the goal is to break down barriers and to continue to build bridges. And we're going to do that through engaging one another to move forward. And the way people can get involved, multiple ways. First of all, they need to come to see the play tomorrow.
Yes, they do.
So that they can understand it, because it's really exciting. But they can volunteer. We have different committees set up through our power of engagement piece that we're working on. They can volunteer, they can study, they can learn more. They can be voices when we need people to support this work that we're going to continue to do to build these bridges and to break down some of these barriers so that even though I live across the street from Oak Park, I can still get food delivered.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. All of a sudden, it's Chicago. Well, we've got to turn around there. And how does it work if somebody wants to work with you, whether it's to learn more about home ownership or apartment referrals? I'm reading that you also offer services for customized listings for apartment seekers, which, is really important for folks who are just trying to find a way to, move in the direction of whether it's getting away from certain neighborhoods, or they want to move into a community that's more integrated, or they're trying to figure out a way to someday own a home and save money through renting an apartment.
Right. So they can do a couple of things. They can simply go to the contact us section and send an email, and in that email they can say everything they want to do or what they want to learn about us, and then someone will respond to them within 24 hours. They can also go on the website and fill out the contact page and check the box if they want someone to call them back right away. And then once they get in touch with us, we can give them options of things that they can do.
That's fantastic. I love the entire mission that you have with your organization. Again, we've been talking to Athena Williams, who's the executive director at the Oak Park Regional Housing Center. And tomorrow night, they are all going to see the 700 people. We need some few more people to have all that energy, that great celebration of 50 years, the kickoff of a 50-year celebration this year. And that again is going to be at the Niederlander Theater. It is at 24 West Randolph. The doors open at 6:30. The performance is 7:30, and you can purchase your tickets at oprhc.org. And Athena, before I let you go, was there anything you wanted to make sure that you touched on that I haven't? I hate leaving anybody who comes on the show with something on the table that they meant to get to.
Right. I just want people to know about Oak Park Regional Housing Center, know about the important work we're doing to break down barriers, to build bridges, and to really create more, better, stronger, equitable communities from the entire Greater West Side.
Excellent. I appreciate the work that you do, and enjoy the performance tomorrow, and I look forward to speaking to you again sometime soon.
All right, thank you, Patti.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Before we go to the break, I know that a few people have been on hold. Let me get to Jim, and then we'll get to more calls after our traffic break. Hi, Jim. What's up? What's going on in your world, Jim?
I'm just wondering if the shaman and the little shamans will go down to to Trump's Thanksgiving party and at least give him a nice, go-away present for his 4 years he's going to prison for.
It's
or if the ex-president will pay for his commissary, let's give him a couple of candy bars down there.
I'm so caught off guard by people who are saying defending that guy. So we're Jim is referencing how many months did he get? 51 months in prison.
He got 41 months. He got
41 months. The guy who had the horns, and he was giving directions with a bullhorn, and I think he wasn't wearing a shirt, and he had painted his face. And
I can picture him. I can picture him at Trump's Thanksgiving party. Though he should have a few of them down there anyway, just for to show his solidarity to his supporters.
Yeah, well, now there are people who are saying, well, he's not mentally well, and we should really be kinder. And I get that, right? I agree that we need more mental health support for everyone, but I do find it fascinating that in this case, they're like, we need to be nicer to him. And
the reality is that the president ginned up this. You saw him; he ginned it up right in front of the public to get these lunatics to obey which is the first time in the history of the United States, probably, I hope to God, the last time. But my point is, I'm sure he doesn't feel any remorse for these people going to prison. He isn't the first guy. One other guy got 5 years, 4 years. A couple of people, they're getting pretty stiff sentences now.
They are.
But I don't think he feels it. Or Bannon doesn't feel any remorse for these people. Apparently, he's still beating the drum to, it's just... It's amazing. Go ahead, Jerry.
It's just more attention for them. I'm gonna run to traffic, Jim. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
You too, dear. Bye.
Take care. We'll take more of your calls when we come back. 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
North on 355, traffic is crawling from Finley to St. Charles Road due to an earlier semi-fire. Southbound railing from earlier Gabers from the 290 down to Roosevelt. Now on the Edens inbound, 41 minutes Lake Hook Road to the junction, hitting the brakes at Old Orchard. Kennedy out to the split 36, Express Savia 556 to here. Inbound from the airport, hour 2. 22 of that on in from the junction. Ike outbound, that's a parking lot out to First Avenue. From the Circle to 390 an hour and 18. Inbound is 1 hour. On the outbound Stevenson, on the exit to the outbound Ryan, a fallen tree. From DeSable Lakeshore, drive it out to 355 an hour and 10. The outbound Dan Ryan is a parking lot out to 47th with a crash involving a semi. Circle to 95th, 52. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
It takes 2 vaccines to help protect you this season. The flu and COVID-19. And now you can get both shots at the same visit. Learn more at cdc.gov/vaccines.
Sponsored by Sanofi Pasteur.
Only Wendy's serves a better breakfast with a better biscuit. Our hot buttery breakfast biscuits are loaded with a fresh cracked egg, cheese, and your choice of bacon or sausage. And right now at Wendy's, they're only $1 each.
Wendy's breakfast biscuits, just $1.
So don't take a chance with those other guys. Bet your buck on a better breakfast with Wendy's bacon or sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Limit 5 qualifying items per transaction. Not valid in a combo. Excludes honey butter chicken biscuit.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
You are listening to Driving It Home. I'm your host, Patti Vasquez, and I looked over at the phone and I saw that Athena was still there, and I was like, "Ooh, we still have more to talk about, Athena." I came back, and sometimes I like to say goodbye to our guests if they're still there, and I was going to thank you. And you mentioned that we could talk a little bit about generational wealth because I had asked about the fact that so many Black citizens, residents of communities, well, not just in Chicago, but across the country, were often barred from being able to own property. There's some crazy things coming out of Kansas and the wording of like even who can and can't own a building. And I asked about generational wealth, and you said you'd like to talk about that a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I really believe that, especially in this day and age, we really need to look at ways of leveling the playing field.
Yes.
Because so much was taken away from people of color. So, first of all, let's start with, and I always like to give this homage to our Native American Indians because this is their land, first of all. And then we all came here and built upon it, and so much was taken away. So when we talk about generational wealth, in white families, they were able to acquire the land and pass that land down to all of their generations. But the fact that black families who built upon on a lot of this land, they were denied the right to even own properties from the very beginning. So I'll go back to what was called the Homestead Act during the Civil War, when a lot of the soldiers were offered almost up to 150 acres of land. And what happened, blacks that fought, they had the same opportunity, but because so many people did not want to see them own land, they were literally intimidated, killed, so that they could not acquire their land. If they were successful to acquire the land, they were eventually driven off of their land. So that was one of the very first examples of land being taken away, because that would have been a great starting opportunity to pass that land down.
Right.
Fast forward. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm agreeing with you. I love this conversation. Continue.
Yeah. And so fast forward to, let's go into the Vietnam War when they came home. Actually, before the Vietnam War when they came home, there was another war when they came home, when the veterans, the soldiers were allowed to own a home through a VA loan. A lot of black soldiers were, again, not given that same opportunity. So, again, we see, again, where black soldiers were denied opportunities to own homes. Hence, right after that is when redlining started.
Yeah.
So there are all these little things put in place to keep blacks from owning homes, in which they could have had the opportunity to own a home and pass that home down in their family to build that generational wealth. Because we all know, Patty, that when you buy a home, that is the largest method to build wealth from your family if you do it right. So that's going to make me take you right back to HUD, because HUD teaches you about how to obtain a mortgage, how to sustain your mortgage, and how to save money to buy another piece of property if you choose to do so.
Oh, that's great.
So all of those rights were stripped away very early on, where black families could not pass the wealth through home ownership.
That's the thing that is hard to have conversations, because there's a lot of I didn't do that, so why do I have to pay the price? But we all continue to pay the price when we have this complete imbalance in our communities throughout the city of Chicago, throughout the country, and people are want to point fingers, and they're afraid. They see that they don't want to say out loud the things that they think that maybe they do, and we've seen more of that on social media. And it's usually words like thugs, or even like less harsh, but we can see what people are afraid of, that they think it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. Hold on one second. We've got a listener, if you don't mind, who wanted to join the conversation about redlining. Hi, Steve from the Gold Coast. What's on your mind?
Yes, I think it's a really interesting issue, because people need to understand the context in which a lot of this happened. So, for instance, African Americans who served their country came back and rightfully so expected that they could avail themselves of these programs, including getting those kinds of loans. But the reality is that technically being qualified to get one of these loans does not mean then that someone in the private sector has to go along with that system whereby they agree to sell you that property. So, that was part of the problem, is that in the 1950s and early 60s, there was no prohibition against openly discriminating against people in this country.
Oh.
And despite the fact that there is such a policy in place with regard to what the veterans are entitled to, that's predicated upon somebody being willing to sell you something. And for people who don't know it, communities all over this country at the time of what we call white flight and the explosion of suburban America and so forth, communities had covenants. You basically agreed that if you bought a home, that you would not sell it to anyone other than another white person.
Right.
And that was the terms by which, you entered into that contract, a sort of a social contract in that community. So, people need to understand how deep this goes. And unfortunately, one of the problems in addressing this today is the intersectionality of race and class. Because though there are protections for people based on race, a lot of that intersects with class. So therefore, when a restaurant says, well, I'm not going to come across the border from Oak Park into Chicago, they're simply can argue, well, we just don't do that for anybody. And it's just a question of, it may be a class issue. And you don't have a protection in America with regard to being poor, unlike other groups. So, but because of that intersectionality, it disproportionately affects persons of color who happen to live in that community. So you can hide behind one when it's really an exercise in the other.
So, this is a great conversation. I feel like we're having a housing panel, don't you, Athena?
Yeah.
Well, and again, this goes to a couple things. I love understanding our history. It informs where we are. But Athena, to your point about folks not knowing that HUD could help them out with learning how to get a mortgage and keep a mortgage, I think, here we have a program that is accessible to everyone, as opposed to whether it was the GI Bill or other programs that were exclusionary of people of color. A lot of people, it's so amazing how much help is there, and people just don't know about it. How can we do? I mean, obviously we're amplifying it right now. What other ways can we make sure that people know? Just be informed and share it when you can is one way, right?
Yeah, and again, that just takes me back to having people reach out to our agency, because for myself, as I stated, I had no clue that this information was out here.
Yeah, I did not either.
Right, and so it's really being connected to a HUD housing counseling agency. It's really being connected to housing resources. There are a lot of housing task force that are being developed right now because of the mere fact of the wealth gap. So there are a lot of different groups that are being developed, and like I said, if people really want to get involved, they can go to our website, fill out the request form, and I'll get back in touch with them and help them get involved with different committees, help them get on different e-blast lists for newsletters around housing policies that are taking place right now. There are a lot of ways.
Yep, let's start building generational wealth for everyone, so that we can, I want this state to be a better place for my sons. I can't live forever. So in the absence of that, I'm trying to help make it a better place for everyone. So I know I've done the best I could. That's all I can do at this point.
And in addition to education, because, when I talk about learning and understanding, just the tone of education, there's also the tone where we're seeing a lot of reparations coming up right now. The reparations do need to happen. People need to stand up and support reparations, but make sure it's done in an equitable way for the people who are seeking it. It's not just about down payment assistance. It's not just about a certain type of loan. It's about people being able to acquire and own property.
Yep. Steve, in your community over by there in the Gold Coast, are there buildings that... Oh, Steve already dropped off. He thought I wasn't going to talk to him again. I was just going to ask him about... Because there are communities that have mixed income housing. And do you have any thoughts on different neighborhoods that are trying to implement inviting people of, lower middle class to live in communities? Because people don't realize that they qualify for subsidized housing. It's not, it's lower, it's higher than people imagine, especially if you're a family of four, and if it's about $60,000, you might qualify for those kinds of assistance, wouldn't you?
Right. That's exactly true. Patty, a lot of people misinterpret what affordable housing is. They misinterpret what, when they say low income, they misinterpret that. Because first of all, affordable housing means that anybody should only be paying 30% of their total income towards household.
See?
So if you're paying more than 30%, then you're not living affordably. So affordable is for everyone. And to your point, yes, a household of four, depending on where you are, I believe in suburban Cook County, a household of four, the income, like you said, is between $60,000 and $70,000. So it's not so much that it's for poor people, but because of, and I have to talk about your caller's point, he was correct when he said it's not really just a race issue, it's race and economics these days, because of the fact that we're looking at people's income. Right now, there's a policy out there called trying to ban the source of income, so that property owners don't hold that against other people if they're trying to get rentals using a voucher.
Right.
That's how bad it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing is that there is, again, that goes to what a lot of folks, it's that fear, that stigma. You know, there's a book about the mythology of Cabrini Green and the intentions and the way that was created. It had good intentions, and then it was completely, it turned into a place that was not supported by the city, by the government. But if we do things right, the government can help. There are ways that the government can help, and that's part of the work that we're doing.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And that goes back to what I said about how our agency was founded, because the government had to be a part of that.
Right.
The government stepped in and said, okay, we're going to help with this.
Thank you so much for coming back and sharing some insight on that as well. Again, we've been talking to Athena Williams, the executive director of Oak Park Regional Housing Center. Go to oprhc.org for more information about how you can be involved and informed, and to get tickets for tomorrow's performance of Paradise Square at the Nederlander Theater on Randolph. Athena, have a great event, and I look forward to. And if you're ever on the Northwest Side and you want to come in studio, I'd love to have you as my guest here too.
Oh, wonderful. We can do that, too. Let me know.
Absolutely. That would be lovely. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. I'm going to take our last callers. When we come back, we're heading into the home stretch, Lady B. 773-763-WCPT. We'll get Roosevelt right out of the gate when we come back, because we're driving it home, and I'm your host, Patti Vasquez.
This is Joan Esposito, and here at WCPT, we love pets. So much that we're spotlighting an adoptable, adorable dog or cat every month. So many deserving pets are waiting for their forever home. We've partnered with community shelters and our sponsors, Love for Dogs Pet Grooming and Mark Drugs, to talk about why rescue is best. It's all on Joan Esposito Live, Local and Progressive. See our current adoptable at WCPT820.com.
Some people treat investing like a game, but Marcus by Goldman Sachs approaches investing in a smart way with digitally managed portfolios that leverage Goldman Sachs strategies. So, do you want to play games or do you want your money to work smart? You can money. Visit Marcus.com to learn more about saving, borrowing, and investing from Marcus by Goldman Sachs.
Investing involves risk and investments may lose value. Brokerage and investment advisory services by Goldman Sachs & Company, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. Lending and deposits products provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
This is a company town, and the business is incarceration.
A new original series from the co-creator of Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan.
Your influence within the prisons is unique.
Jeremy Renner.
We don't break the law, we bend it.
Diane Wiest.
Precinct men, part-time gangsters.
And Kyle Chandler.
If you want to know who's running what, come to me. I'm the mayor of Kingstown.
Mayor of Kingstown, now streaming on Paramount Plus. Go to ParamountPlus.com to try it for free.
On January 6th, 2021, followers of Trump and something called QAnon attempted a coup at the United States Capitol. Who are these people?
I wanna live with the QAnon girl. I could be happy the rest of my life with a QAnon girl.
It's our good friend Steve Goody's QAnon Girl song. You can go to stevegoody.com for all of his music there. And by the way, before I forget, before the end of the show, I was at Zany's on Monday, Zany's Comedy Club on Wells. It's right over there by Wells and North Avenue. And we had such a great show. I want to thank everyone that came out for that show. And I want to tell you that I will be headlining at Zany's on December 7th. December 7th, I am headlining. It's a Tuesday night. It's a discounted ticket, so it's $20 tickets. You can go to zanies.com for that show. They will sell pretty quickly, I think, because it's a small room and they're social distancing and they are following all COVID-19 protocols. So go to zanies.com for tickets, or you can go to my Facebook page, go to Patti V Show, and you'll see a link right there for tickets to go see me at Zanies on December 7th. And Roosevelt's been on hold for a while, and I appreciate that, Roosevelt. How are you doing today?
Thank you for taking my call.
Hello.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking about you. when you were on another station, somehow you didn't fit quite in. This is a perfect fit for you.
Aw.
This station and you.
I am so happy here. Why?
Because you have a heart. And all of the people that are on the station have a heart.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? And a lot of your callers are the same way.
Yeah,
they're sympathetic and they're great Americans. And always hear the other side saying that they're such great Americans. And I was going to get to that. When you were talking about the guy with the horn, you know what? It reminded me of all those rallies that Trump had, where they had gigantic flags with the head of Trump and the body of Sylvester Stallone. You ever see that?
I have, yes. Yeah.
And that's precisely my point. His followers are the same replica as Trump. They're phony. They're cowards. And while you were talking about that guy with the horns, whatever happened to that lady that took a private jet from, I believe it was Dallas, Texas?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. The one that was like bragging in the hallways about going into Nancy Pelosi's office.
Yeah. Yep. And she also put something on social media saying, I'm not going to go to jail.
Yep.
I'm blonde. I have white skin. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, that's part of the madness, is the hubris.
That's part of the madness. But by the way, the guest you just had is a great guest.
Wasn't she?
That's my point. A lot of these people's ancestors benefited from slavery, benefited from having... I'm sorry. Excuse me.
That's okay. It happens.
Benefited from slavery and the riches of slavery. So when they came, their table was set up like a table in a pool. Their table was set up, so then they had to go through the heartache of being dark-skinned or of being taken advantage of, such as what this government did with the African Americans, 40 acres and a mule. You guys were talking about how soldiers were promised this and promised that. Yeah, but that was for white soldiers. So, you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to admit that when you came from Europe, other Europeans were discriminated, against you, but in time you were accepted. Whereas one thing you can't hide is the color of skin, or an accent, a foreign accent.
Roosevelt, because we've had these conversations, I have to ask you a question. And I think maybe we've talked about it before. Because when I was younger and I felt at my first census, I'm biracial. My mother, or I'm a mixed background. My mother is from Mexico and my dad was Irish. So I present as white, but I always identified as being Mexican. So when I filled out my first, as a big Mexican, Irish American, but when I had my first census, it said, there wasn't a choice there. But, you have black, white. And I thought, and I would write in the margins every time I got a census like this, because I'm sorry, but white folks don't consider Latinos to be white, and yet that's what we have to categorize ourselves as. What are your thoughts when you see those boxes?
I always say Hispanic or whatever the box is, and that's precisely another point you're making in a roundabout way, that the government, excuse me, that the government put these boxes in. The government, it was the government, it wasn't the people. So when people say, "Oh, let's forget everything and let's kumbaya and let's live together," it's not going to happen, because the government from the get-go took advantage of other people that had dark skin or a foreign language. That's precisely my point. And look at these knuckleheads on January 6th. They don't believe that they should be in jail,
right?
Because it's embedded in their minds. Now, you make a great point, being that you're Irish and Mexican. Notice, you have to, well, not that you have to, but it's always like African Americans. They have to say that they're African American, and if you have any blood of Mexican, you have to declare that. Not have to. Again, I'm correcting myself, but you have to say that you're Hispanic. You see the point? Mm-hmm. The point is that. Why can't you take the Irish part of it?
Right. Well, that's not right. It's not a choice. They've eliminated that. I will say a couple things. One, what really became apparent during the early days of the pandemic was that they didn't have a handle on numbers for the Latino community, because we have to self-identify as white in any sort of demographic collections. So early on, they didn't have that. It was that the Latino community was being so disproportionately affected, and the death rate was higher, the positivity rate was higher, working conditions were often worse. worse for Latinos, and there was no way to measure that. It was getting the coroner's office had to go back and fix their records. And the other thing is, this just happened to us recently. My mom and I and my husband, we all moved into Gladstone Park in 2001, and I don't know what anybody thought of us, but there another Latino family. There are a lot of Latino families now moving into the area, and one family moved into the middle of the block, and sometimes they have parties over the summer, and somebody came out one night, one of the neighbors came out and said, "See what happens when you let Mexicans move in?" And I was like, well, first of all, we've been here, but our conversation is when Mexicans move in, there are folks, and by the way, I'm not saying all white folks. I'm saying folks like that, and they ruin it for you. They are making it harder for you because we do have to have these conversations. They see a Mexican family move in, and they're like, and they start worrying and start, then categorizing them as other. They other them right away, don't you think?
Oh
yeah.
I'm going to give you a better example than that.
Sure.
You never met me, but I could pass as Italian or whatever, European.
Same here.
By the way I look, yeah. So when we first met, my wife has got blue eyes, blonde hair, she's mixed. She's Czech, Polish, German, you name it. I'm 100% Mexican, born in Mexico. So when we first moved in, there was this old man, like a few houses away from me, and he tells me, "Oh, I'm glad that you're moving in."
Yeah.
I was white.
Yeah.
Because I'm glad you're not like the other people. I laughed.
That happened.
But,
I worked at Marshall Fields. I used to work on the mezzanine in the water tower, and that's where they used to have like gloves and purses and hosiery and things like that. And the manager of the floor, I remember this. We were fixing the gloves in the display case, and she said, "It's so nice to have another white person here." And I said, "Well, actually, I'm Mexican." And she goes, "Well, still, it's still better." And I went to HR to just tell them, and they were, and HR, she said, "Well, how do you feel you were discriminated against?" And I said, "No, I just think that you need to know that you have a manager who prefers to work with white people." But they didn't. Yeah. Anyway.
But the reason why he said that is because there was other Mexican families moving in the neighborhood. So he thought that he was
safe.
One on the side. Yeah, one on the side. But it just goes to show that that and if you notice, I don't know if you know it or not. Can you imagine growing up in Mexico as a kid with the name Roosevelt? How bad I had it?
My mom was wondering about that. She was wondering about was it fans of President Roosevelt? Were your grandpa? Yep.
Yeah. but so when I came here, I couldn't speak a word of English. I don't think I spoke then. I mean, I stumble and mumble all the time. But when I came here, I was discriminated because I couldn't speak the language.
Sure.
And I was Mexican. So I was,
Yep.
So, one time I got into it with one of the members of the family, let's just say, and this guy, his ancestry came from Europe. And he called me the two words, and I said, "Listen," I go, "we've been here." I go, "We've been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. Maybe," I go, "if you want to call me that, I crossed the river, or my ancestors crossed the river. You guys have to cross a whole ocean illegally."
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point. But they don't want to go that far back. I've got to run to one more call. Okay.
I know you did.
Thank you so much, Roosevelt. Always a great conversation. You too. And Cesar's been on hold. You wanted to talk about something that came up during Paul Vallis's conversation. Hi, Cesar. How are you doing?
Hey, great. How are you?
I'm doing well. What was on your mind?
Great. Well, now I want to clarify because that guy, he's always all over the place with his information. One thing I want to mention to all the listeners out there, when he said that the Walton family had invested in the academy, I just want to remind everybody that the Walton family are the ones that are they run the Walmart. So if some greedy family like the Walton family is investing in something like this, I'm sure they're up to no good. And Paul investing behind it, I could almost guarantee you that he wants something.
Which foundation was? I might have missed this. This was the interview the conversation with Joan and Paul.
Yeah.
Yes, he was in Arkansas, and they opened up like EMT academy for an academy for first responders.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it was invested by the Walton family, which they run all the Walmarts out there. And he always bends things the way he wants to, and he said, this is not a charter school, which in fact it is. The charter school is almost the definition of just privately run. So I just want to remind the listeners that whatever Paul Vettis says, he's probably up to no good.
Well, I will say that one of the things that I was a lifeguard, and that's a whole different story as far as what's going on recently. But I will say I've wondered if there's a better way to do programs for kids so they can be exposed to different, develop skills that might lend themselves to different careers. For me, being a lifeguard, a lot of my friends became firefighters and police officers. It wasn't the route that I went, but it still establishes that sort of sense of providing public safety. And so, we've talked in the last few weeks about the trades. And tomorrow, by the way, is a Women in Apprenticeships Day. I should probably find someone to talk about with that. But, different, like the park districts used to have wood shops and, even like weaving shops and things like that, some different textile things. So I think that rather than, to your point about having big corporations, for whatever reasons, investing in that, I think there are other ways to go about it rather than diverting kids who might otherwise have access to education, equal access to education across the city.
Oh, it's very true. I mean, the fact that, let's say that what he did say, which is true, that it was very diverse and a lot of low-income kids and a lot of different people, a lot of different communities can be part of it. I think it's a great idea. But I just think that the back end of it that is invested by the Wall family, it's just, that's sketchy.
It gets your spidey senses going, it sounds like. You have a great evening, Caesar. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. It was wonderful to hear from you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good night. We've got to run. Rick Unger shows up next. I'm late again, really. You just should start throwing things at me, Lady B. That's how it's got to go. Thank you, Lady B, and everybody here at WCPT. Tomorrow, we're going to have a guest in studio. Ryan O'Donnell wants to talk to us about what's happening in another part of the world that we're not paying attention to. There are refugees who are gay, trans, queer, who are being targeted and violence against them. And we need to learn more and pay attention. So we'll talk to Ryan tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Be well. Bye.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
This is a company town, and the business is incarceration.
A new original series from the co-creator of Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan.
Your influence within the prisons is unique.